What is going on, everybody? My name is Mike. Welcome back to Tech 24/7 TV. I am glad that you are back with me today because we are talking about my 90-day review of the 12.9-inch M1 iPad Pro. Now, I know what you're thinking, Mike, 90 days? This thing's been out way longer than 90 days. Well, truth be told, I swapped out the version that I had for the 5G version. I thought that was really important to include that in this feedback. So in today's video, we're going to talk about the 12.9-inch M1 iPad Pro. We're going to talk about how I use it, what I use it for, and how it really helps keep me grounded as a productive individual. Because like many of you, I have a lot of different roles I play in my life. I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a son, I'm an employee, I'm a business owner, and the M1 iPad Pro is my go-to device. I still have the Mac Mini here that I use, but 70% of my computing tasks are done on the M1 iPad Pro. So in today's video, we're going to give you my 90-day review, how I'm using it, why I'm using it, and what I think about it at the end. Let's get started. Before we get in the video, folks, YouTube tells me that 90% of you that are watching today's video are not subscribed to the channel. Now, I think it's a real shame. If you do me a solid, click subscribe, maybe consider hitting like on the video. The algorithm loves when people hit like on the video so they can bring that video to more people that are outside the audience, bring more people into the circle because we have a lot of fun here. Now, my iPad of choice is the 2021 12.9-inch M1 iPad Pro. It is 1 terabyte of internal storage and 16 gigabytes of RAM. It has 5G, and I am all in on Team Space Gray. I'm using the Pitaka Mag EZ Case 2 to protect the sides and the back of it when I'm not using it inside the Magic Keyboard. It's probably one of my favorite accessories because it is so conformable. There's all these different accessories, but we talk about that more later on. If you are thinking about buying the Magic Keyboard, I mean, honestly, unless you are really comfortable with getting dirty and showing marks, because it will, and it does, don't buy it. Save yourself some money, because if you're not comfortable with getting marks, you are going to have a hard time using it. I am not comfortable. I thought it would be, but it's got a few marks on it, and I don't like to use it because I'm always in this paranoid state thinking that it's going to get more and more dirty, and I don't want to take it out of the case or even take it out in other places. But I do. I'm getting past it. I'm a grown-up. It's going to be okay, Mike. I had a 512 gig iPad from 2020, which I upgraded to the 1 terabyte version, and I bought that based on the amount of RAM that was going to be allocated for the 1 terabyte and the 2 terabyte versions. I always buy the cellular model. Verizon was giving a $200 discount on it here in the States, and while I'm traveling, I let my son, my wife tether their devices off of my iPad, so it's kind of like family sharing. It's not really that much money from Verizon. I think it's maybe like $10 or $20 a month. And for me, that's more of convenience. I would rather pay than connect to unreliable Wi-Fi or public Wi-Fi and have to worry about that from a security standpoint. So that is my deal, and I'm okay with the $20 per month. If you're not, sure. As I mentioned in the beginning, I'm someone who fulfills a lot of different roles in my life, just like I'm sure many of you do. I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm an employee, I'm a business owner. So the iPad Pro is my go-to device for computing tasks, which I talked about in just the beginning, where I'm using it for about 70% of my computing tasks. It is small enough, it is compact enough, and it is versatile enough where it can handle many of those tasks. During the week, my day normally begins around 6:30, 6:45, where the very first thing I'm doing is getting my son ready for school and out the door. Once that's complete, I'm getting my device off the multi-device charger from Sidecar, and I'm really going to sit down and have some coffee before anything else is done. Since I want to be successful both in my normal 9-to-5 job and here on the channel as well, I find it almost imperative that I use time blocking as a method to accomplish things that I need to accomplish for both of them. I'm very mindful of how I spend my time and try to hustle in the margins throughout the day. I accomplish this during the day by using time blocking in Fantastical. Now, Fantastical is a subscription model. Many people think that the $40 per year is a little bit too much, and I don't necessarily disagree, but I'd offer you two things. So one, if you're buying like a paper calendar or a planner book, it'd probably cost you somewhere in the neighborhood of $40, depending on how nice it is. Thank you, Holden, for that reminder. And two, there are things that you can do in Fantastical that you can't necessarily do in the stock calendar app, which is going to be important to me. Like if I want to duplicate events on both my calendar and my wife's calendar without necessarily having to make the event twice, it's a lot easier that way in Fantastical. Now, the place I hold all of my kind of external brain is going to be Notion. I use Notion to export things out of my brain, and I rely on Todoist for my task management. I recently switched from OmniFocus to Todoist because I thought that OmniFocus was not necessarily as lightweight enough as it could be, and it took a lot of overhead to manage and maintain the database, which I'm not really looking for. I want to be able to do this in a relatively expedient manner, and I'm not looking for a lot of overhead. Todoist doesn't feel that way, though it's only been about 90 days since I've been using this. Once my day is planned, I'm clear on what tasks I need to do, what calls I need to join, and if I need to travel anywhere for any type of meetings. That's when I switch gears from Mike, the business owner, to Mike, the professional, and I'm going to go to my office and where I'm going to find myself for most of the morning doing work for my job. Now, for context, I work in IT at an enterprise software company, and most of my day is spent on conference calls. They could be either video calls Mostly they're audio calls. So when I'm sitting here at my desk, my iPad Pro is right next to me and I'm taking notes in my app of choice, which is going to be Good Notes. And then I'm organizing those notes in my Node. Now, I'm a very visual thinker. What that means is that way I approach problems is usually by drawing things. And the 12.9-inch iPad Pro really helps eliminate that fear of claustrophobia when you're writing on something and you might write a little bit too big, but it feels like it's taking up the entire page. Well, the 12.9-inch iPad Pro eliminates that for me, and I don't necessarily have the best handwriting. It's right about lunchtime when I shift gears from Mike the professional back to Mike the business owner. I spend the first 30 minutes of my hour batching and processing emails in Spark, which I find to be the best cross-platform email app for Mac, iPhone, and iPad. Now, it is cross-platform. The app's really, I think, designed well. It does allow you to go ahead and delegate emails to team members, and it has a template feature which allows you to quickly respond to repetitive emails if you get a lot of them, like I do. This is also when I review my current set of projects for the channel or try and complete or move anything that needs to be rescheduled throughout the remainder of the week. After I've processed and batched all emails, I spend the last maybe 30 minutes of my lunch hour, eating lunch actually, and taking time to relax, maybe watch some YouTube, watch some Netflix. It really depends on what it is. But the display on the 12.9-inch iPad Pro really just adds to that. One, it's very big, very bright, it's highly color accurate, supports HDR, and the Dolby Atmos sound really helps play a part in the immersive experience on the iPad. Now it's after lunch and I'm going to find myself back in my office. Depending on what day it is, it might be a weekday, it might be a weekend. I might find myself back at my computer, I might be editing video, and if I am, it's not like my iPad is going unused. I'm taking my iPad, I'm connecting it to my computer, my Mac here, using Sidecar. And when I'm using Sidecar, I'm using something like Final Cut. I might be using something like Logic, where my 12.9-inch iPad Pro is acting as a secondary display, and it's really holding all of the information, all the additional kind of palettes, all the additional screens that might be relevant to the task at hand. And this is where I think the 12.9-inch iPad Pro excels, because the screen is so big and it holds much more information than most people have on their laptop. So this is really key to being productive while I'm on my Mac as well. The workday's come to an end, and at this point, I'm done using my iPad for work-related tasks for the next couple hours. Finding myself going to pick up my son from school, I'm hanging out with my family, really spend the next probably 3 to 4 hours hanging out and doing family things. After that point, it's about 9 o'clock at night, and that's where I find myself usually having a couple extra hours to do some additional things, depending on what it is, that I will use my iPad for. Now, I'm probably changing context from something like leaning forward, so something I'm going to be highly engaged with and responsive, to leaning back, something more relaxing and not necessarily have to be as attentive to that content. I could be playing a video game on my iPad, which I do a lot of. I could be watching something on television while using the iPad itself as a second screen. I could be editing photos in Lightroom. It really just depends on what the day is and what everyone else is doing in my house. The 2021 iPad Pro is overly capable, and while I do have some use cases that benefit from the power and the hardware of the 2021 iPad Pro, arguably there are some use cases that don't, and it can be done with a $329 9th generation iPad or even the iPad mini. And truthfully, I will probably never get to a place where I'll be able to use the iPad Pro as my singular computing platform, having it replace my Mac mini or my MacBook Pro. That's because, one, the software for my use cases does not exist. Two, if it does exist, I need to jump through a ton of different hoops in order to go and use it effectively. Or three, once the software and the platform are mature enough, my skill set has already moved on and I'm doing something else that would need more advanced support from software. It's all about conformability to those use cases and ensuring that the tool is being fit for purpose. Now it's time to decide whether or not the M1 iPad Pro is for you, and arguably it's not an easy decision. First, the new M1 iPad Pro is excellent at RAM management like I talked about. Affinity Photo, Affinity Designer, Photoshop, those things are going to benefit from having more RAM and being allocated more RAM, which the iPad Pro is the only device that is in the lineup today that developers can use the entitlement that Apple offers to allow the device to use more RAM when available. Otherwise, most traditional apps, they don't require the additional RAM, and really you're going to be paying for something that you probably do not need, that you will never experience the benefit from. Second, if you already don't have a primary computing platform, like you're not using a Mac, you're not using a PC, and you're debating purchasing the 12.9-inch iPad Pro, I think this is a strong recommendation. One, because of the screen size, you're going to get more information, whether you're using 1 app, 2 apps, or even 3 apps in split view on the 12.9-inch iPad Pro than you would have on the smaller version of the 11-inch. It's more information, it's going to make you more effective, it's going to make you more productive. it's an easy recommendation. This also rings true if you already have a primary computing platform like a Mac and you want to use it in Sidecar, because again, the big display is going to give you more information that's available to you in that context when you're using Sidecar. And 3, I don't really like to recommend someone to buy the 12.9-inch iPad Pro because they're consuming content, because the display is so great on it. But if that is your use case and you want the best display, this is it. The display is awesome. I don't necessarily have any problems with the blooming that was talked about in the beginning. I mean, it looks good in low light performance. All right, guys, thank you very much for watching my 90-day review of the 12.9-inch M1 iPad Pro. Sorry it took so long, but again, I love this thing. It's really my go-to machine. Let me know what questions or comments you have down in the comments below. Now, I'm reviewing the 8.3-inch iPad mini next, so make sure you're subscribed for that, and I'll talk to you in the next one.